Good afternoon. Welcome very cordially after this tasty lunch break. I would like to welcome all of the people present here and on the line. I hope you also enjoyed some tasty online bits. Next time, feel invited to Warsaw or to the next place that we are going to organize our conference in. But it is a standard thing that concentration is hard after lunch break, and therefore I was thinking how to start. It's so important how you start, and because this is supposed to be a workshop, so perhaps I'll start with some questions, just 2 questions, so as not to make you exhausted. My presentation is going to focus on digital tools and recruitment marketing and the recruitment process as such. That's what we do as an agency. I will tell more about who we are further down in the presentation. Whenever the moment comes to sit down and think about what you would like to say, what you would like to present, a window opens. You can think about things that may be obvious to you, but at the same time, in the ever-changing world and the rush that became our daily bread, the volatility that has become business as usual, the dynamism that is continuously changing our reality makes matters more diversified. And I was actually thinking to myself, what is recruitment? Would you have any reflections to share, any definition about the recruitment process? What could be the beginning of our discussion? What could be the onset, the spark, the kickoff? What is recruitment nowadays? Getting to potential clients, acquisition of clients, candidates, customers, any other guesses? Showing your resources? All right, thank you. And my second question, if we are talking about a process, and I'm not a whiz when it comes to definitions, but I think that a process needs to have an end and a beginning. That's what I was taught at the university, at least. When does recruitment process start and when does it end? Can we actually give it a contour, some limitations in the current reality, in the contemporary reality? Would you say that we can do that? Well, if we had met 10 years ago and if I hadn't run many projects related to recruitment marketing in the meantime, I would say that the recruitment process starts when the candidate applies for the job, when the application reaches the company, and ends once the contract is signed. But based on hundreds of processes that we've been through and we are still pursuing, we have created a process that we often talk about to companies that come to us, our potential partners. Normally we start by talking about challenges and problems that companies are facing right now. Often, companies say that it's hard to get the right profile of the candidate, the right number, ideally, to have a group to choose from. That is a problem indeed. Normally, we decide to separate that into pieces. We say, it is a hindrance, it is a challenge, but is it the biggest one? When you think about the recruitment process and the way the world functions nowadays, the information that surrounds us, the proximity of a variety of messages surrounding us, I'm sure that we would all take our smartphones, and after 5 minutes of looking at any website, we would have found millions of pop-ups fighting to get our attention. We would then go down from this floor to see zillions of billboards, posters in the streets, leaflets promoting different kinds of products, and also promoting recruitment or career in many, many companies. We decided to create a process. It is not about reinventing the wheel, it's rather about guiding your thinking in the recruitment process. Above all, as employers, we should be recognizable to the candidates. We should ensure that whenever a candidate looks at the name of the company, the logo, he or she associates a certain story behind it. The next impact that we as employers can influence is about liking the company. The moment when a candidate actually starts to consider that, well, perhaps that might be a place for me, I'm just going to ask around, I'm going to verify it, perhaps with my contacts. Then the next part comes, the breakthrough, where the candidate says, well, that's the company for me. Couple of years back, you would say that that's when the recruitment process proper starts and the application. Afterwards, we have the entire process of recruitment interviews, screening, verification, etc., you name it. However, once the decision is taken to employ the candidate in the contemporary global situation, the candidate has to like whatever he or she is doing. Why? Because soon they may start to look around for something else. So they have to be engaged so that any thought about changing the workplace is very rare. The employee should be loyal, and the employer should make sure that loyalty among employees is fostered through a number of mechanisms. Ideally, if the candidate recommends you as the employer to his or her friends. So, in fact, having the recruitment process as our starting point, we've gone through at least 8 big areas, or I would call them touch points between the employer and the candidate that we can influence, that we do influence. By saying influence, I mean positive intention. We want to engage the candidate and ensure that throughout the path of recruitment or throughout the entire life cycle of a person in an organization, the person stays possibly satisfied. The contemporary economy, as I said at the beginning, is very volatile. At the same time, it gives us a number of insights as to how to stand out on the labor market. Where can you find your dream employer? Right now, employers want to give more than take. We're no longer living in times when you would have thousands of candidates applying for working at you, unless you have very high salary or a very desirable brand. Normally, an employer has to engage in a number of activities, invest a lot to attract the talents that he or she wants to acquire. More and more often we see that a company is not everything. Shortly I will tell you more about the generation gap and what is happening right now on the labor market and what is in store for us in the future. There's a number of studies that show that the change that is happening right now on the labor market is just a prologue, an introduction to what will happen in 5 or 10 years when the next generation enters the labor market, and then the story will actually start. So the companies are starting to show their success story. They want to be authentic and natural. They want to underscore the human factor because oftentimes you say that you came to work for a company, but you left the company because of your superior. Such cases are all too numerous. Right now, the companies want to show the human face of their organization in order to attract candidates. In the contemporary era of the internet and the IoT, we have access to a plethora of channels to reach our candidates. In the past, you would advertise in a newspaper or popular job portals, which I would call standard mechanisms. Still, many organizations use that kind of tools, but nowadays we have much more modern mechanisms that I'm going to tell you more about shortly. And we want to show as much as possible. It's not enough to describe your working conditions and your company beautifully in the job ad. It would be best to let them experience it, to give them a hands-on experience. So on that basis, you could think of 6 criteria that are the key success factors for employers. It has to be simple in being surrounded with a plethora of stimuli. Simplicity wins. The message has to be simple, not overloaded. It's cool if it builds positive emotions. So for instance, if you read an ad or watch a spot, if you engage in a project, there is an emotional element to it. Of course, it will not resonate with everybody. Sometimes, during different meetings, we have discussions about marketing ideas that were disliked by somebody. But if you reverse that question, is the person who dislikes that element a gem to the company, a jewel? Or if that is not the case, perhaps you should still pursue your idea, because this will be actually your first filter. You will filter out those who would have left either way after the first period of cooperation. It's good if you're authentic and true, if you have a story. Right now, what surrounds us are different internet forums and ways to exchange opinions. And very often, the image that you have about a given employer in your head and what is really happening in an organization varies greatly, and you have to be really cautious about it. The element of unexpected is so vital, the so-called wow effect. And of course, it has to be concrete. No beating about the bush. Speak openly what you want to achieve. And why did I give you this lengthy introduction? Currently at the labor market, we are experiencing tremendous change, but even bigger change is about to happen. Work in the past was treated as a commodity. It was considered to be something that you can purchase or something you can join. It was to bring you some tangible effect, and deciding to work for somebody was rather a transaction. For the younger generation nowadays, work is supposed to be an experience, something that you want to experience, share, not just work for work's sake. Of course, there are different cases, and naturally, there are situations where you simply have to perform your duties, but on the whole, most of recruitment marketing, most of employers, perhaps I should say, go in the direction that I mentioned a second ago. If you are asking yourself how to be successful, how to target young talents, then the perspective changed. Just definitely. In the past, you would have this grand vision of grandiose corporate bodies working in metal and glass skyscrapers, wearing suits every day. I can well remember my older colleagues starting their careers in glass and metal skyscrapers. That was a wow experience. Right now, that is changing. The younger generation is more interested in a holistic approach of the employer to the world, a number of programs, emotions, giving back some values to the society where you function, and these trends are already happening. Most importantly, from the process of recruitment and winning the candidates, as I mentioned at the beginning, we should not forget that this is about communication. We are not only communicating what the work is about or how we function in a given organization. Rather than that, we communicate what the work looks like. In other words, we are focusing on the expected outcome, on the tasks, on what the workday looks like, what the employer is engaged in, and what importance does it bring with itself for the community at large that you're a part of. Apart from the change in the positioning of labor as such in the eyes of the candidates, we are also experiencing a very interesting situation because of the fact that we have very diverse generations on the labor market right now. We have at least 3 or 4 generations present on the labor market, and employers should be able to reach each and every one of those with a separate message. That's a big challenge because each generation pays attention to something different. You could say that there are some experiences that shape the generation gap or the generation clash, I should say. And if we talk about Gen X, well, back then the world was our oyster and nothing was impossible. International career, international teams working longer hours just to get this high social status was something that really impressed people. Nowadays, I would say that Gen Y and Gen X are unicorns with broken horns. These people have been brought up in a sense of mental and financial security, and they are able to look for a job where they actually feel well. When it comes to Gen X, their aspiration was to reach the work-life balance, to ensure that there is no excessive emphasis on any of the sides. Right now, what matters is flexibility of employment. In other words, normally you don't have fixed working hours right now. People have flexible working time. Nobody is making any fuss about the fact that you have to go to a doctor during the day. I think the pandemic played a role here and helped us a lot in this respect. But again, we are talking about professions where that is possible. It looks totally differently if you think of people working in factories or warehouses. There is this element is simply absent, and that's a big challenge that such professions are right now facing. Another big element impacting what we are talking about right now and how the perception of work impacts the job attractiveness is access to technology. Gen X had to learn how to use technologies, they had to switch their habits. New generations naturally reach for their phones. I can tell you something about my daughter. Very often they are, digitally native. My daughter is able to scroll the smartphone using one finger only. What will happen in the future when the world of technology will simply entrench us? And the very approach to a career in the past, you would speak of people in an organization working for a dozen years or so, building their career, walking up the career ladder. Right now, the tendency is rather to migrate, to try out something new, and then perhaps to come back to your company into a higher position or have a gap year. My friend recently spoke of a short 2-month pension, retirement, if you like, in Spain, just to cycle around, learn more about Spain. Well, I was totally surprised. 2 years back, I would never have thought about anything like that, but now it happens, and with all the conditions, in such a landscape, what is the current recruitment process? What does it look like? When does it start? When does it finish? I would say that the recruitment process is a never-ending story. When the candidate joins the organization should be making sure that the candidate feels well. But is it so that the candidate's place is in this organization for eternity? Well, I would doubt it. I do have some interesting research about how the younger generation approaches that topic. And of course, this question comes with another one. How do people learn about recruitment? If we talk about Gen X, they would look for websites, job portals. Right now we have campaigns, events, mentoring programs, ambassadors programs, things that candidates can naturally use to learn more about the organization and decide whether to join it or not. Well, I've spoken a lot about the generation gap, what's ahead of us. As an organization, we are all the time trying to be close to new people, to new candidates. At Hire, we always try to be in contact with students. Recently, we carried out an in-depth study of American research, and we see that there is an interesting split when it comes to the share of respective generations on the labor market. We compared 2022 to 2023. You see the data on the screen: Boomers, Gen X, Millennials, and Gen Z. very often say that Gen Z is demanding, knows what they want, are not afraid to ask and demand, and their share is going to increase by 100%. This is data based on US statistics. I'm sure it will not be translatable one-to-one to the Polish market, but it does show some dynamism of change. Right now, with, say, 15-17% of Gen Z people on the market, they are the talk of the town. People talk about them. Sometimes there are very controversial articles about them, talking about sensitive issues, but everything that is about to materialize is something that we should be prepared for, and we should also show to our students, our pupils, such aspects that they should pay attention to in the broader context of building their personal branding as potential future employees.
When it comes to some statistics from the report on the functioning of Gen Z, 60% of Gen Z representatives takes information from social media. More than 40% of them gets information from internet. So 60% of representatives of Gen Z takes information from Facebook, LinkedIn, reading information and posts, then searching online, not even mentioning traditional media like press, publications, books. It shows how powerful internet is and how powerful internet will have when we talk about building the image of the employer. 60% of Gen Z appreciates the content, forgetting about the quality of the content. There were 6 elements that I mentioned about success factors. Credibility definitely wins against it when it comes to the quality maintenance, quality of the content. Let me mention the recruitment video. So far, many companies developed brand spots, presenting company, presenting the way they work there. And you can see there is well directed, it's really well worked through, some snapshots from drones, from the office, happy people, smiling people. Does it work? Yes, still works, and it's better actually to click on social media when we have something like that. It generates actually better coverage. But there is more and more movies made with, smartphone, taking selfie, describing actually about the position, etc. So this is the future, natural and no artificial features. Another interesting piece of statistics related to this generation: 70% of representatives of this generation is more prone to change jobs that would represent their values better, and that represents itself in social media in a better way. Young people, whenever they select a job, they follow insights online and they adapt to the content that we build in social media through fan pages, profiles, or just presence of ambassador programs that we have in the organization. The risk of a lower effectiveness of work decreases by 80% if the employer is not involved in social media. So you can see that for Gen Z, it's very important that the employer is present on social media, so that this representative of young generation can be proud, showing a profile of the employer to friends, saying, okay, it's worth actually to follow, to link, to post something here. So not only actually the information on the job portals, but we go beyond that. And what is also interesting, 62%, as much as 62% of the representatives of this generation actively or passively constantly look for the job. The fact that I work somewhere that I like, a place that I like, doesn't mean that in a month I will not change it. So more and more people also notice the international potential of their career, and we have some examples from our organizations where happy employees received some offers from abroad. And they decided to go for it, to use their time for this kind of activities. On the one hand side, we could be unhappy, angry with that. We could say we have to do something about it. But based on the statistics and the insights that we get from the market, based on our own observations while working with young people, the question is maybe it's a new normality that will stay with us, and we'll have to adapt to it, or we'll have to find new solutions. But it will be difficult to find solutions to keep people, to maintain or to attract them to our business. And here we have a slogan, a motto that we follow while we work with other companies when we develop some HR marketing projects. This is the motto saying the best companies never recruit, they simply attract people. Of course, it's a difficult and long path to go to reach this moment. However, in Poland we have some brands which, even if they stop the image activities or awareness activities, they still will have an influx of candidates available. At the same time, they invest all the time huge money to be present, to be with their candidates, to offer various projects and programs, and to surround them with their brands so that they are always the first choice. Why am I talking about it? And why can I talk about it? Because for 8 years we've run the higher marketing HR agency that deals with this kind of cases. We may say that we work with employer branding, we develop strategy, value proposition, the brand audits, etc. So we deal with all these elements. We're at the final goal. We have just a thick strategy showing how it should be. We also we are not strictly the HR agency. We are based on the real cases of our partners, cases that show how we can attract candidates. And we have various cases, starting from development of IT data center in the southern Poland, and throughout the year we have to employ 200 specialists without any brand actually in Poland, through simpler projects that we need, let's say, for a few hundred warehouse people for a factory in a country where the unemployment rate is very low. So what can we do here? We, of course, usually go through ads and LinkedIn, Facebook, but it doesn't work anymore. So we have to look for new options that may appear. And one of these options is a case that I'm going to discuss with you, which is the technological startup that we developed. And maybe let me risk yet another exercise. Please try to close your eyes, offline, online, and please imagine the job offer, the first job offer that comes across your mind. Now you can open your eyes. And the question is, was it the job offer that looked like that? Very good. But majority of the job offers on the market are just, the list of bullet points where you get actually some more or less specific things. Let me quote: work in a friendly team and nice atmosphere, stable employment, possibility to obtain interesting professional experience. Extremely attracting elements, aren't they? So in the light of changes on the market, the expectations of Gen Z, there's, of course, job offers still exist. Of course, there are candidates that apply for these jobs, but the question is, how long will we find them? But if we see some such job offers, and if we compare them against job offers from the employer branding, marketing, HR, etc., where we had internal, external tools for awareness, for recruitment awareness, tools that impact emotions, reasonable decisions of the candidates. There is a huge range of them. We can. It's not a magic, but the solution is to adapt, to choose the ones that will be adapted to our target group. Our method that we follow is that we need to go for projects that can fit employers and candidates' DNA. So, of course, this meetup, open days, we do organize them as well. However, we should come up with such a communication message for the candidates so that the candidates that we realistically want to have on board come to be recruited. And coming back to this job offer, this used to be always an element that made me really angry, because based on this information, young person who in fact already knows something about the job market can find a job. But this is not actually the piece of deep inside information based on which we can actually decide on employment, undertaking a job. So in our startup, we changed we developed a tool that actually creates such automatic job offer, and here we provide key information for candidates, the type of contract, salaries, etc. Of course, some employers don't want to show it. Probably in the future, it will be legally regulated. All of them will have to provide salaries. But of course, if we have a bullet point about the great atmosphere at the workplace, we would require from the employer to describe it. What does it mean, a great work atmosphere? What do you mean by young dynamic team? Tell me more about it. Is it a team of dozens of people who every week go for integration, they work in various hours, they have many passions, or the young dynamic team is something totally different that for a given person would be understood or would be perceived completely differently. Of course, we have place for standard benefits, and many employers forget about them. For instance, they forget about pension funds that are that they offer, or the launch tokens that they offer to the employees. Of course, there is a video format, image format that you can use while presenting the job offer to be able to build the image of the employer better. We have the process culture book that we offer, the newsletter or bulletin about the company in a PDF format, and a very simple recruitment form. Many employers, by the way, don't have it, don't offer it, and we often say that when we developed many campaigns based on social media 2 years ago, 50% of the users back then came from the mobile phones and 50% from the desktop computers. And nowadays, when we organize campaigns, we see that 85% candidates come from the mobile phones and 15% from the desktop. So usually these are representatives of the company. For them, we actually organize the process, and these are these employees that of the potential employer, they want to enter the portal to see how many candidates they have already. Let's imagine that we embark on a tram, we go to a destination, there is one stop left, meanwhile we get the information, interesting job offer, we click, we want to apply for it. Will the recruitment process of the company allow you to submit your application in 30 seconds? In some cases, yes. In majority of cases, no, because it requires to log in or to register, to add your CV in PDF format. So I assume that not many candidates who are passively looking for jobs have on their mobile phones the updated CV. And that's why we developed the two stages recruitment process. First step is to provide first and last name, phone number, and then in the second stage, we are expecting from the candidate to receive the CV, but we already have the candidate in our pipeline. We can proceed this person. So mobile phones help for that. And this type of job offers, even though young generations are quite chaotic, quick, fast, they don't really, they can be easily distracted, but we know that candidates on average, they spend over 3.5 minutes reading these ads. So if the content is built properly, if it provides value, then more people would get acquainted with the offer, and the quality of fit between the candidates and the potential employer would be much, much better, much more effective. But that was not sufficient for us, and in the context of the video elements, we decided to add a Work8 Snap module that allows to take your mobile, you can get your feed or record your feed, and you can actually provide it, you can send it to employers portal. So based on this information, the employers, no matter whether it's a manager, whether it's just a person that we would employ that work immediately, this would definitely help us to go for the better fit, because people are able to visualize better whether it's a person I want to work with or not. Of course, the statistical distribution shows that for some people it would be a too quick decision, refusal, a rejection, but definitely this solution would and could help companies to find the candidates. And yet another element, data. Data, as we know, can be used in the right or wrong purpose, aim, and we assume that everybody has good intentions. So the targeting levels, that or the information that we leave online are often misused. But in case of recruitment, it could be an interesting insight to show candidates the fit to their preferences. On top of the standard activities, these job offers can give employer information, which benefits, which tasks are most interesting for the candidates, and this will be translated into the proper image of the job offers. We can actually use the better conversion rate here, but statistically we can also know that the benefit that is so exciting for the employees in the company, for the potential candidate, is not that attractive. Or sometimes in our campaigns, English lessons on the level of comment of the English language is also quite often analyzed by the candidates to understand what the B level, C level, A level mean, and what kind of what kind of comment of the language is required and for what. I would like to show you some other cases how the employers encounter the 6 elements in projects, how they develop solutions that bring added value for the society. And we had great pleasure to work with Accenture, developing the new ambassador program. The standard formats, they have the usual ambassadors at the universities, they involve them in some educational fairs, etc. We approached this topic differently, from a different angle. We collected the representatives of students, university teachers, everyone who would like to be involved in peer-to-peer education. We equipped them in knowledge, abilities to present, prepare presentation, public speech, etc. And we invited them to visit the high schools and the secondary schools and the places where they want to go to explain how what their studies are all about. And after we had the pilot program, 500 people involved. There were many people that listened from their peers how this labor market looks like. So the ambassadors obtained new skills, soft skills, and they added value to the needs, requirements of the target groups. Another type of projects that we are intensely working currently on is the reverse recruitment process, starting from the submission of application through the employment. First ask, then apply. This is our motto. So when we announce the potential job offer, the candidate should answer the question whether this offer is for me or not. We involved the Kion Connect company from Krakow, a few experts. It devoted 10 minutes with the candidates on meetings online. Candidates wanted to learn more about the potential jobs, and there were slots arranged for the candidates, and candidates listen to the experts explaining what the job is all about. And based on this, they took decisions whether these jobs were for them or not. So more and more companies show this human face, the history behind, etc. And people simply applied for the time slots, and they were, during these time slots, learning more about the company. This type of format is possible to be implemented not only in the companies, but also in some production areas as well.
For instance, Żywiec, the Polish brewery, invited people, high school students, to meet people in breweries, and the latter could tell them more about the work, what it entails, what the job means, and the impact was amazing. During the previous panel, I heard that this was not a single case, that there are more companies that do the same, and based on the insights from the market, we are of the opinion that shortly there will be more and more companies ready to follow suit, and we are keeping our fingers crossed for a number of initiatives that are undertaken under the umbrella of vocational consulting and advice. This is a huge added value. We do see that they are also going in the direction, so I think that we will be able to change the labour market together and create a labour market where candidates are able to develop their career path more consciously, with full awareness, knowing what they're choosing, so that the recruitment process, even though it's a continuous one, is still very transparent and nice for everybody, so that neither the candidate loses or wastes his or her time, nor the employer faces challenges to get the right candidates on board. Thank you very much for your attention.